Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're looking at something that I think is really interesting, and a lot of you guys were curious about it too when you sent it in. So
Oh, yeah.
let's jump in. Millie Bobby Brown and how she's pushing back against, well, all this tabloid criticism of her appearance. It's gotten pretty intense. So to get the full picture, we've got some excerpts from an independent article that one of you sent in,
Okay.
along with Millie Bobby Brown's own Instagram video.
I think this is a really fascinating case study because unlike a lot of celebrities who we see kind of become household names as adults,
Right.
she's been in the spotlight literally since she was a kid. I mean, think about it. She's only 21 now,
It's crazy.
but she's been famous for over a decade.
That is mind-blowing when I think about what I was doing at like 11 and 12 years old. You know, it's just like algebra homework and awkward school dances. And this girl was, walking red carpets and dealing with global fame.
Yeah. It's like this whole other layer of complexity when you think about growing up in the public eye, especially now with the rise of social media. It's not just about dodging the paparazzi anymore. It's this constant online commentary.
Right.
People dissecting her every move.
The memes, the deep fakes, it's
Oh,
a
absolutely.
little different ball game.
Yeah. And the tabloids, I mean, they haven't exactly been kind to her.
No, some of the headlines I saw about her appearance, just brutal.
Yeah. What really struck me is how some publications are so fixated on her, like, looking older than her age.
I saw that. Like, Millie Bobby Brown looks 40.
Yeah.
What?
And she actually, kind of clapped back at them in this really brilliant Instagram story.
I saw that.
And she just says, women grow. Not sorry about it.
I love that. Such a simple statement, but like so powerful.
It is. And it's just like, yeah, I'm growing up. What did you expect?
What, you want me to stay 11 forever?
Exactly. And it really challenges this whole cultural expectation that we have, especially for women, to like remain eternally youthful.
Oh, totally.
It's as if society expects women to just be frozen in time, and any sign of aging is a bad thing.
I mean, I don't see anybody freaking out when George Clooney gets another gray hair, in fact.
No, he gets more distinguished.
They call him a silver fox. It's like aging for men is this like badge of honor, but for women it's like, oh no, gotta hide those wrinkles.
Absolutely. It's a complete double standard, and I think it ties into this larger conversation about the unrealistic beauty standards that we put on women.
Yeah.
Think about it. We're constantly bombarded with images of airbrushed, perfectly sculpted women everywhere you look. Magazines, movies, social media.
It's everywhere.
It creates this totally unattainable ideal.
And it's just setting everyone up for failure.
Exactly. So when someone like Millie Bobby Brown, who, by the way, is already incredibly beautiful and successful,
Oh, yeah.
dares to, age naturally,
Right.
it somehow becomes this big scandalous thing.
It's like, oh my God, she has pores. She's human.
Right. And it highlights this underlying fear that I think a lot of women have, especially in the entertainment industry, of not being considered desirable or valuable as they get older.
It's really sad. Like, what kind of message are we sending to young girls? You're only worthy if you look young and flawless.
Exactly. And this is all playing out in this situation with Millie Bobby Brown. But what's interesting to me is that she's not just taking it, she's using her platform to actually push back.
Yeah, she didn't hold back in that Instagram video. I mean, she goes beyond just calling out the ageist comments.
Right.
She calls the whole press coverage disturbing, straight up labels it bullying.
And I think that's a really important distinction to make because this goes beyond a few snarky comments here and there.
Yeah.
This is like a pattern of behavior from some media outlets that just seem to be trying to tear down young celebrities.
Especially women.
Particular women, yes.
And it's like you have these, and she mentions this too, these adult writers dissecting her appearance, her choices.
Right, like adults with established platforms and audiences are choosing to target a young woman who's still figuring things out.
It's kind of creepy when you think about it.
It is. It makes you wonder, what's the motivation here? What are they hoping to achieve by just picking apart her every outfit, every facial expression?
It feels like they're trying to like control her narrative,
Yeah.
keep her in this box of what they deem acceptable for a young female celebrity.
Absolutely. And it's a dangerous game to play. Because what message does that send to other young people, especially girls, who are trying to navigate the complexities of growing up and finding their own voice?
Yeah, like don't you dare step out of line.
Right. Or we'll be right here to put you back in your place.
And that kind of pressure can be really damaging to someone's self-esteem and mental health, even for someone as successful and seemingly confident as Millie Bobby Brown.
Absolutely. It can affect anyone,
You know what I thought was really interesting, and this is where it gets a little bit complicated, is that she mentioned that some of the most critical headlines she saw were actually written by women.
That's a fascinating detail. Makes you wonder what's going on there.
Right. It's like, is this internalized misogyny? Are we so conditioned to judge each other based on these narrow beauty standards that we end up being our own worst enemies?
That's this sense of competition.
Yeah.
Like some women feel like they need to tear each other down instead of lifting each other up.
Yeah, and I think that's something we really need to talk more about. Like, how do we break this cycle? How do we create a more supportive and empowering environment for women, especially young women, in the public eye?
It's a huge question.
Oh,
Definitely worth exploring further.
definitely. But before we get into all that, let's take a quick break and we'll dive deeper into this whole dynamic when we come back. So we were just talking about how some of the harshest criticism, like thrown at Millie Bobby Brown, actually came from other women.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah.
Makes you think about the pressure women face to conform to these
Yeah.
really narrow beauty standards.
Yeah.
And if you don't, or if you dare to age naturally, it can trigger judgment, and sometimes even from other women.
It's like we've internalized these societal expectations so deeply that we end up like policing each other.
Yeah.
You know, instead of celebrating each other's individuality and strength and stuff, we're like picking each other apart.
That's a really insightful point, and I think it speaks to this larger issue of how women are often pitted against each other,
Yeah.
both in the media, but also just in society as a whole.
It's true.
You know, we're constantly bombarded with these messages that there's
Oh, yeah.
only room for a few at the top and that we need to compete with each other for resources, for attention, for validation.
So instead of like building each other up, we're tearing each other down.
Exactly.
It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is. And it's a cycle that we need to break because ultimately, you know, when we criticize and judge each other, we're only reinforcing those same harmful, like, societal norms
Right.
that keep us all feeling insecure and inadequate.
It's like we're all playing this game that no one actually wins.
Exactly. And Millie Bobby Brown actually touches on this in her video.
Yeah.
You know, she talks about how we need to do better and specifically calls for more support and kindness, particularly towards young women in the public eye.
I think that message resonates far beyond just celebrities, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, haven't we all experienced that feeling of being judged or criticized, whether it's about our appearance, our choices, our beliefs, whatever?
Absolutely. We all have insecurities, and we've all been on the receiving end of hurtful comments at some point.
Yeah.
So it's really about recognizing that, like, shared humanity
Yeah.
and choosing to be more compassionate and understanding, both to ourselves and to others.
Instead of tearing each other down, let's lift each other up, right?
Exactly. And that's not to say that we can't have, you know, differing opinions or perspectives,
Yeah.
but it's about expressing those differences respectfully without resorting to personal attacks or harmful stereotypes.
So what does this all mean for us, the regular people? You know, we're not all celebrities with millions of followers, but we still participate in these conversations, right?
That's a great question. I think it comes down to just being more mindful of the impact our words and actions have on others.
Yeah.
You know, it's so easy to get caught up in the gossip, the drama, but we need to remember there are real people with real feelings behind those headlines, behind those social media posts.
It's easy to forget that there's a human being on the other side of the screen.
Right,
It's
exactly.
like if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah,
But maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's about like actively choosing to say something kind, something supportive, something that'll make someone's day a little bit brighter.
I love that. Because even just a small gesture of kindness can have this ripple effect.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it inspires someone else to do the same and so on. And before you know it, you've created this wave of positivity
Right.
that can counteract all the negativity that's out there.
Like planting a seed
Exactly.
in a world that sometimes feels really bleak.
I think that's a really powerful message to take away from all of this. You know, Millie Bobby Brown is choosing to use her platform to advocate for kindness and support. And that's something we can all do, no matter our level of fame or influence.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating a more positive and compassionate world.
And it starts with each one of us,
Absolutely.
making a conscious effort to be more mindful of our words and actions, both online and off.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways that you think our listeners should like really keep in mind?
I think it's important to remember that celebrities, even with all their fame and fortune, are still human beings
Yeah.
with feelings, with vulnerabilities.
Yeah, they're not robots.
They're not immune to criticism, and the constant scrutiny they face can have a real impact on their mental and emotional well-being.
It's easy to forget that they're just people, just like us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to be aware of the power dynamics at play, especially when we're talking about the media and young celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
There's a responsibility to report on news fairly and accurately, but also a need to be mindful of the impact this scrutiny can have on a young person's self-esteem and mental health.
And I think it's also important to remember that we, the audience, have a choice in how we engage with these stories. We
Absolutely.
can choose to perpetuate harmful stereotypes, or we can choose to challenge them.
Right.
We can choose to criticize, or we can choose to support.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about being more conscious of the choices we make and
Yeah.
the impact they have,
Yeah.
and recognizing that we all have this power to create a more positive and supportive world,
One interaction at a time.
one interaction at a time.
And on that note, I kind of want to circle back to Millie Bobby Brown. Despite all this negativity, she seems determined to navigate fame on her own terms.
Yeah.
What do you think is so inspiring about her story?
It's so inspiring to see her pushing back against these totally ridiculous expectations and refusing to be defined by them. Like she's not letting the tabloids tell her how to look or act or whatever.
Yeah, it's so refreshing. I mean, how often do we see, especially young female celebrities, kind of like morphing themselves to fit in, trying to please everybody, whatever the current trend is?
Oh, totally.
And she's just like, nope, this is me, take it or leave it.
Exactly.
I remember she even said in one interview, like, I'm not going to be told how to be a girl.
Oh, I love that.
Which I think is so important for young people to hear, especially girls.
Yeah, like permission to just be themselves.
Yeah, flaws and all.
Flaws and all, exactly. And to embrace the process of, growing and evolving. It's just a powerful message of self-acceptance and like really owning who you are.
It is. It makes you wonder, how can we as, consumers of media be more mindful of the impact that our words and actions have on others, especially those in the spotlight?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we have to remember that behind every headline, every Instagram post, every meme,
Right.
there's a real person with real feelings. And our words, even if we think they're just harmless jokes or observations,
Right.
they can have a real impact,
Especially when you multiply that by thousands, millions of people all saying similar things, it's easy to forget that there's like a human being
Oh, yeah.
on the other side of the screen.
It's easy to get desensitized to it, for sure.
Totally. Totally.
I also think it's important to be aware of the biases and agendas that might be like influencing the stories we read and the content we consume.
Yeah.
Not everything is as it seems, and it's important to be critical thinkers to question the narratives that are being presented to us.
Yeah, don't just take everything at face value.
Right, exactly.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one thing you hope our listener takes away from this whole conversation?
I think if I had to boil it down to one word, it would be kindness. Just a little more kindness and empathy in the world. Whether it's towards celebrities or the people in our everyday lives, we all have our struggles, and a little bit of understanding can go a long way.
I couldn't agree more. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the complexities of fame, the impact of societal pressures, and most importantly, the power of kindness. Until next time, everyone.